I'm so sorry that we screwed up that last 50 minutes. Was it? No, it was 38 minutes of conversation. Or it was 50. I forget.
We went on a lot of tangents.
Either way. In the middle of the conversation, I remember asking you, I said, hey, can you pick up that plant and put it on the table? Yeah. Which was hilarious. And I'm sad that we lost that moment. Lost it forever.
We still just have the visual of it.
Yeah. We still have the visual. No, we still definitely do. Which I'm wondering if that audio is salvageable in regards of the mic, the shotgun mic that we had on top of the camera. So that's a possibility. The lost files.
You get the funny bits.
Yeah,
lost
exactly.
Files of the Toussaint Morrison interview.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I learned when I was having that conversation with you is that you want to turn that mic just a little bit towards like tilt it.
Oh, like this.
Yeah. Or like this, like that.
Like
there you go. One thing I learned because I found your music on Bandcamp, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll listen here. And I tried to find it on Spotify, and I was like, what? Couldn't find it. And then what I learned in the interview was your name on Spotify is just Seaberg.
Yeah.
SEABERG.
And there's a reason why it's like that. So like I have this mononym name that's like Seaberg because it's like regardless of whether or not I'm doing solo work or with a band.
Yeah.
I always will go by that name.
Yes.
Because Black Velvet Punks is like something that I'm trying out. But the first thing that I was thinking was like, last year was, if like I release music under this, are people going to get confused and be searching for this name I've gone by for 3 years and then not be able to find it? And that's like the hard thing about trying to like rebrand. Yeah. It's also like knowing you trust the dynamic enough to be like, okay, I feel like this is solid enough that I can officially do a name change.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, why not just go with like the name that's the most recognizable, which is the name that people have known me by for the past 3 years.
And when you did City Pages Pick to Click,
that was Seaberg.
Yeah. So you got the buzz.
Yeah,
you got the press. You can't change that.
Yeah, there's more. I know, and that's literally. I had this conversation with this dude, this bassist that I play with another band. He was like, "Why would you, change the name like that?" And I'm like, "You're right." So,
which is like, I mean, I see that happen often. I think. There's been like several rappers, and it's like, hey, I'm just this name, but when I'm with so and so and so and so, then it's Voltron Max. But when I'm with old girl and dude, then it's Predator X. And it's like, what? How do I find the music?
Well, I think like Nassim and Spencer Jones, like they have a new project that they just came out with, where they're still performing as a duo, I think, but they go by a different name. It's like not Hard Knocks. It's like something they announced it at Indeed. Well, this is a perfect example. I don't remember what it is.
There you go.
Because I'm gonna keep calling them Nazim and Spencer.
But maybe you need to go to their websites to find it. But I think I think if you make a statement track, like with DJ Danger Mouse when he,
that's true.
One of the greatest albums of all time, The Mask and the Mouse. He was with, I think it was Danger Doom was the name of their group when they made that one album, and then he teamed up with the lead singer from the Bends or something like that, and then they were called something else, but I only remember them by the album that they put out.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Not by their name. Like, I don't know your name. Are there any favorite artists of yours that have created, like an offset, AKA in combined forces with another artist that you were like, that's dope. I like that.
Yeah, I like all of like Astro Black's like solo project. Like I work at Pimento running sound with Michael Fisher. Yeah. And Michael, outside of, Zulu, well, this is a perfect example. Zulu became Astro Black.
Zulu's, okay.
And that branding, they had a really good reasoning for why they did that. They were like, well, none of us have direct lineage or ancestry to the Zulu tribe, so we feel like we shouldn't be appropriating this name, which is funny because there's a ton of white bands who don't care and will do that anyways. I was going to say D'Antwoord or D'Antwoord. I always forget.
D'Antwoord, yeah.
I was like, that's a perfect example of South African white band. Anyways, but... No, Astro Black is a good example because, like, I love Proper T. I love that they have, like, Proper T, Trelly Mo. I don't know if he performs with them anymore, but Proper T, and then why am I blanking on it?
Which is a great name, by the way. Greg
yeah.
Reese.
Yeah, Greg Reese. And I know Greg, like, that's Greg's name.
Yeah. Went to high school with Greg.
But then, like, why am I blanking on what Michael's name is? It's MMYYKK. That's why.
MMYYKK.
Yeah, it's like
month, year. Wait,
no, it's like because it's like Michael. Oh, yeah,
MMYYKK.
Yeah, so he like has it spelled.
Mike.
Yeah, he has it spelled out kind of in these acronyms. So I like that because I'm like, oh, that's like really inventive, and it's like, and it kind of fits with his like synthesizing, like the work that he does in his albums. No, so I think it's cool because like each one of them has a solo persona outside of the full band, and they utilize these names, so it's cool. It's just like, but they also had to put out albums as that to be like,
now we're Astro Black,
and then now we're Charlie Mo, now we're Proper T, now we're
got it, and they abandoned Zulu because they had no lineal ties to the Zulu nation or the tribe. Man, count on black people to take care of black people, and that's ain't nobody else gonna. Gonna make
real.
That move.
No, that's real. I think about that. A lot because they were just very aware.
That's an admirable move. Well, that's
yeah.
It's tough because like as a black person, you know, we talk about double consciousness at this table all the time on the podcast. You're aware of somebody else, of some other black person's awareness. Like that is a window into that person. And you have the opportunity to, you know, access that window and show that person, hey, my bad, didn't mean to, like, you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But that's an encouraging, remarkable move on their part. That's really admirable. Wow, I'm thinking about that now. Yeah. The first thing that we spoke about in the last interview, and I don't want to harken back to it too much. You were talking about being one of the few sound persons of color that you know. Yeah.
The sound tech world is really white male dominated. And a lot of times, I was just at an audio workshop with Holly Hansen, and we had this discussion about how there's this culture of, unfortunately, like irritation or disrespect that you get from
curmudgeonry.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from, I know, years of like them being silenced or mistreated by bands.
Yeah.
But then they put that back onto you if you're a young performer starting out. Yeah. And so a lot of times it's like proving to the sound tech that you're like good, and then once they see that you're good, they're like, oh, they choose to be all like camaraderie and all buddy with you, and you're like, why? I was the same person I was 25 minutes ago in the sound check, but
no,
the switch up is real.
Exactly. So now I'm a human to you. It's great. But the dynamic of that, when you see a white sound person kind of like dig into a band full of white folks or you know, whatever, that's for me, there's different connotations to that when you see a white sound person just digging in on like a black musician. It has a different look. Do you share that same sentiment? And if so, what is the look to you when you see that happen, or your experience when that's happened to you?
Yeah, I do think it is a different look. And really for me, it's just like the way that you're approached. There's like a different level. Cause like, you know, I play in an all black band with 2 black men from Houston, Texas. And so the idea is like when sound techs immediately look down at us, it's done with like the talking down to us is done from a certain like angle. It's always like, oh, like y'all come in here and do this type of thing. And they may not say that outright, but there's definitely like an undertone of it. I have actually had a sound tech say that outright though. Like y'all coming in, like, and I'm like, what? Like y'all, you have to know. I have like a particular story, but I'm not gonna out the sound tech.
No, that's fine.
But I definitely do have like a moment where that happened. And I remember like walking off the stage and being like, like I was fuming. I was like, like, you know, this is after sound check before the set, and I was like, man, I'm so, you know, irritated that this happened. And my drummer, you know, Travion, he goes, just realize like, and I said, why aren't you upset? And he goes, because I know I'm that nigga. He's like, if other people don't realize it, they'll know in time. And then like once we kill it, you know, they're gonna know that we're those people. And and he's like, I don't sweat it because like I have, you know, that centeredness in myself to not get like flustered. you know. And obviously, like, there's been cases where, you know, sometimes sound techs, you know, ask bands to move equipment off the stage super quick, and they'll hassle you and they'll start pulling stuff off. So there's been moments where he's been heated too, where he's been like, we played this show and then, you know, he just tries to rip his gear off the stage. And that's also super rude. It's like, dude, we can go on and help him carry things off. It's like, you know, it's like if you don't have a backline, that's like, you know, he's got shells, he's got cymbals, he's got hardware, he's got all types of things. That's not going to come off in like a matter of seconds, you know.
I don't know if you know, like, new band night or whatever it is at the 7th Street Entry. I don't know if they still have it, but it was on like Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday or Sunday, some night that was not like optimal. And I feel like I feel like the only reason they held it was almost to have like education for musicians, because being on the road when you do like just a ton of shows and like, you know, you got 2, 3, 4 more bands after you, they're like, you need to go. But I remember the sound guy was so nice. Sound person was so nice at 7th Street. And once we finished that set, I literally just started talking to one person. He's like, come on, get the hell off the stage. And I was like, excuse you. And then like we all got into it, and I was like, is this what this is about? Like, so you bring us in so you can just like start like trying to like get people acclimated to like get the hell off the stage. Like, there's a better way of going about it. Like, it's like, hey, like I know you sent the emails. I know you put it in bold and italics and like, you know, red font, you know, like, but you don't need to talk to me like that. Like, it's just like,
well, and I've also seen like all types of performances, right? Because like, we were talking about Prince in the last interview, but Thomas Saban is a perfect example of somebody who like, I love this dude. I met him a year ago. He moved to LA now, but he reminded me so much. I know he doesn't like getting compared to like, you know, Prince and Jimi Hendrix, but he definitely like had that showmanship and like that vibe, talent at playing the guitar. I knew that he was going to go a little bit over time, because he just, you know, he gets rocking and he gets like really into it. And he's just one of those people who's like, he is a rock star. He will leave his guitar like screeching, feedbacking on stage to prove a point. Walk up. And sometimes sound techs, they're like, you know, and I knew I was like, I'm factoring in this, you're going to take a little bit longer in your set. That's fine. Yeah. But then if they're like, we have a hard schedule, this is how it's going to be, I'm like, it's like the weird professionalism behind like, this is a rock show, but you need to keep things wrapped up and constricted. It's like but
rock is not wrapped up and constricted.
It's like playing two parts of the world, you know. It goes you know, back to like the dual consciousness thing. It's like you're playing two aspects of like, do I stay and this is why like when you have a manager, you can be like, I can be my crazy wild ass artistic self, and then my manager can kind of clean up to me and kind of do the pieces, you know. But when you're playing like manager and artist, you have to be really mindful of like how you're like on stage. And, like,
I see that almost parallel in many situations, like when you look at just kind of like dominant culture, colonial minded institutions, like when you look at prison or education or even you know, like the framework of shows. Like, it's like, you know, there's a humanness to everybody. And when you look at, you know, black people and kind of like culturally, like what's been shut down in certain situations, it's like, you know, control your hands, control your mouth, you know, watch your language. And in some, you know, black cultures, it's like, you know, you let it fly and see where it goes, you know. And, you know, like Dominican Republic, it's like, you know, you're supposed to be here at 3 p.m. I'll show up at 7. And like that's the
and
look.
That's part of the culture. I mean,
exactly. Whereas like with this, it's like you'll be done with your rock creativity when I say so.
Yeah, you know? It is really interesting. It's interesting when you think about it like that too, because like, you know, in Guinea, you know, there are these giant music festivals, and they'll say the festival starts at 4 p.m. The festival starts at 8 p.m. There are probably 10 acts on the bill, and you know, 10, late. 15 acts.
It's going late.
It's going to be happening till 4 a.m. Like, you know, and it's just like a cultural thing, and at least like I see it in a lot of like, you know, black and brown, like, you know, I see it in a lot of African like cultures, like shit is going to start late, and that's part of the culture, is like it's starting late. And then so it's like, it's weird when you get into the westernized culture of doing music, because you have to be very like, you got a 30-minute set, cool, you can't go a second over it, you know, if you're in like these, you know, these bigger venues and these places, which is like, it's just like interesting, because some people break it, and it all depends on like what your reputation is, you know, how what your platform is, and
it also depends on what the audience is acclimated to, like what they're conditioned to expect. I think like some of the best shows I've ever seen is when people went off script and just kept it going. And I mean, like I say, like I think I told you last time, Prince, I don't think he had a minutia of understanding of how long he was going to go or not, and I don't think he gave a damn. And that's what was great.
And that's what made him such a good performer. And I think that's the things that people actually like. Yeah. In performance is like that kind of like breaking of convention and like being able to be like, oh, this is new and refreshing because it's not scripted. But then so then it's interesting when there's things in place that try to like tamper down that creativity.
I like my art scripted. Like what yes, I like to know when my art starts and when it ends.
Some people do in Minnesota. I don't know. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, there's an interesting thing. Schoolboy Q was quoted once. They said, "What was the wildest show you did on your tour?" And he said, "Minnesota at the Varsity." And they said, "Why?" And he said, "Because it was the first time I'd seen literally all white people in the audience, and none of them really moved." And but
wait, he said, but that was his most.
But I think it was because there was white people. But like when you go to a show, like a massive show in Minnesota versus like House of Blues in Chicago versus, Knitting Factory in New York, ain't nobody moving. Like, and it's odd. And it's like, and so the artists, I think, get the idea that they come here and they're like, I'm gonna do my Minnesota thing. Let's mail it in, fellas. And then they just do the thing. But I'm kind of blown away by what is that here? Like, and do you notice that at Pimento, or is Pimento
is not
an oasis for black folk?
The reason why I like Pimento is because it's one of the few places where it's like I do see this hub of like African culture, of this hub of Caribbean culture, this hub of like, and it's one of the few places that does feel like people are like whether or not they do a dance hall night or they do a reggae night, it's like audience members are engaged. They're dancing, they're having some kind of reaction, whether it's an open mic or it's like a concert. People are having a reaction to the show, and it's very engaging. And I think like that's such a refreshing element. Because the thing is there'll be those shows where people are just staring at you stock still, and so you'll walk up and be like, did you hate the show? Like, it's okay if it wasn't your cup of tea. And they'll be like, no, I loved it. That's the weirdest thing. They'll be like, I loved it, I thought it was amazing. And I'm like, then why were you so stock mannequin still? It's the strangest concept to me. I just don't get it.
This is why I fucked with Wisconsin so hard when we were on tour all the time, is because you go to a venue and people would just let it all fly. And they would leave nothing in the club. They'd be like, all right, we had our great time, on to the next one. Whereas here, I'm like, so did you dig it, or what was going on? And it gets odd because it's like, and it's not. I mean, I prefer to dance. I prefer to move. I prefer to be in a venue where everybody's moving. But I can't rack my brain around the lack of movement. Like, that's odd to me. Like, at what point did that become like, just like, status quo? Like, that's what we're gonna do when we come here. I don't know. Do you stand when you watch shows?
Do I? Yeah, I try to stand, unless it's like a seated.
No, I'm saying like stand event. Still.
Oh, do I stand still?
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm super contemplative, I mean, I'm somebody who like will be looking at what an instrumentalist is doing.
Yeah,
like, oh my God, it's really intense. But usually I move. I mean, usually I'm like, because I know that they want to be given energy that they're gonna put back into the audience, and then it's gonna be this receptive like energy cycle. And also like I want to move because it's like, I'm out, I'm getting out of my house, I'm getting out of my environment to be here. So it's like I might as well move, and I might as well be dancing and be engaged.
So what throughout all the concerts you've seen, what are the top 2 concerts that you've been to that you'll just never forget?
I mean, recently for my anniversary with my girlfriend, we went to Jadena, and that was awesome. The 45 to 65 to Africa. 65, 45. I'm blanking that.
Where was it at?
But it was at First Avenue Main Room.
Damn.
And it was a really bomb show because, I mean, it was like so many black people in one space. It was like, it was like, even just like in the main room hall alone, it was like 400 black people, a lot of African people. And then he was he's just an amazing live performer. And one of the reasons why is because, I mean, he's got a beautiful visual. His lighting was amazing. He played with a live band with backing tracks, which was like amazing because you got the live feel, but you also got like his album, his studio album, you know, songs that he hadn't really released. He'd been releasing in snippets, so you kind of got so seeing like the full album, like, and I didn't actually sit and listen to the album beforehand, so being able to see the full album play out on stage was like really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's got to impact the way you listen to the album moving forward. Yeah,
because I'd heard like Tribe and I'd heard like Sufi Woman, but like seeing like Sufi Woman performed live was really
okay.
Yeah, and then he like came out into the audience because there was a point where he came out, you know, with a wireless microphone, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And they're all grabbing onto him and stuff, and he's just like the chillest, most. He's somebody who's like the chillest, most like real dude ever.
He's from Milwaukee, right?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is he was, you know, there was a point, because super African, you know, centered show, and then there's a point where he's talking about like, I forget that his mom is white and that she's like from Wisconsin, and it's just the most random thing ever. So it was also just like cool to see these two parts, and he was just unabashed. I loved it.
Well, he doesn't look like he's fully from Africa. I mean, the brother's got some light skin in him, so yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely liked like how he gave a lot of. He definitely played to the audience very well. Yeah. And I think playing to the audience when you're on like a big stage like that is super hard. So the fact that he did it is just like really, really great. Yeah.
But that's a choice though, because you don't have to.
True.
I think that you should.
Yeah.
But
he could have just been like, I'm going to do my thing regardless. Yeah. Of audience.
Look at the balcony.
Look at the balcony.
Just, blank out. So that's one. What's the second memorable concert that you'll never forget? Could be recent, could be, you know, when you were young.
Let me see. Oh wait, I just want to preface, it was 85 to Africa.
85 to Africa.
All right,
got it.
There we go. But anyways, second one. Okay, so this is I'm just gonna reveal something about myself. So I love Leon Havas. I love her so much. She's one of my favorite artists for a number of reasons, and I've seen her in concert 5 times.
Woo!
So I would say that Leon Havas is like, so it's like hers was one of my top favorite concerts to see, but I have to pick which concert because I saw her in Chicago, I saw her in LA. And LA was actually like beautiful, but the first show I ever saw her at was Varsity Theater. Okay. And this was like years ago. I think I was like 19 or 20. Yeah. And she was playing, and I saw her with my mom. My mom like had come into town, so I got some tickets for her and my younger sibling to go see her perform, and it was just beautiful because she taught herself how to play guitar, how to play jazz guitar. And she's half Greek and she's half Jamaican, and so she has this style that's like really soulful, really R&B, but then it's also just like, I don't know. She's really good at her craft, but she's so humble, and I think like that's actually what's most beautiful to me about her concerts. It's not so much that I like the bombasticness of things; it's how things are so spectacular by being so like she just is. Okay, she doesn't have to like proclaim it; she just like kills it at guitar. Yeah, you know, she kills it at singing vocally, and she kills it with a band, and she kills it solo. I think the coolest thing is like seeing her go from a really intimate solo guitar set to like with a full band, and it has the same impact. If anything, it has a bigger impact when she's solo because it's just more vulnerable, and it's really, really cool. Wow. But Moses Sumney was also dope. I love Moses Sumney.
Lena just said Moses Sumney. Mentioned Moses Sumney.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Leona Havas, whether she's dynamically playing like, you know, by herself or with a band or whatever, do you ever think of releasing music that would just be you and a guitar? Yeah. Like kind of the way that we had you perform here. Yeah. You know?
I actually I've thought about doing more acoustic. I mean, I have. I think that's the cool thing about doing solo sets is like I'm able to like kind of showcase more of like my guitar skill or my level of that. Yeah. Because there's I've been invited onto things to just perform as a guitarist, which has been really cool. Even though guitar is not my first instrument and it's not my only instrument. But I do think it's like it's very vulnerable in a way that I'm still like getting used to accepting and embracing.
Do you have to reimagine songs when it's just you and the guitar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely like get into a different mindset when I'm playing with like a full rock piece. When I'm playing with a full hip hop piece too.
So before you played here, did you have to like rehearse a little bit, or did you just like, I'm gonna let this fly, see what happens?
I actually just like popped out. I think I had done, yeah.
That's cool.
I literally just had a band practice the day before.
Oh, okay.
Because I have my practice on Tuesday. So I just played with like this hip hop punk trio, and then I was like, oh well, now I'm gonna get ready for this, and go and do this this set with a little guitar.
Yeah. I mean, that worked out. It definitely worked out. You say guitar is not your first instrument. What is your first instrument?
My first is piano. So my mom taught me how to play piano when I was 4 or 5, and then she hated teaching me, so I stopped.
Why she hate teaching you?
Because I never listened to my mom ever.
Oh.
At least I was a really bad student for my mom. I should just put it that way.
Are you still able to play the piano?
Yeah.
Okay, so it paid off.
Yeah, I actually to my knowledge, I think that I could be better at it. I'm getting back into it, is what I tell people. But it's what I transpose everything off of because it's my root. Okay. So whenever I'm writing for a guitar, I actually transpose on piano first, and then I pull it over to that instrument.
So you play piano, guitar, anything else, or is that just it?
I played bass. I played flute for 8 years, and then I think we talked.
Yeah, we talked about that. You wish you would have played it more after you saw Lizzo play it, and you're like, "Damn, girl, I should have stuck to that."
But also, I'll just leave the flute to Lizzo, and then I'll.
Yeah, I mean, breaking the flute out now, people would be like, "Oh, they're trying to do it just like Lizzo."
I know. I couldn't even say like, "Nah, I was a concert band geek awkwardly in middle school, and I had to do this." But I had to do it because in my family, and I identify as gender non-binary, but in my family, all the women in my family played flute. My grandmother plays harp. My mom played flute and piano. So it was something that I had to play when I was like 8. So I just did it.
Yeah.
But then, funk bass I really like. And that's about it. I like play a little bit of drums, but I'm normally just picking up on instruments.
You say concert band geek.
Yeah.
Did you get into band simply to play the flute, or did you play the flute and go into the band? Like, what came first?
I played the flute and then went into the band. I think I was like second chair. I was first chair for a little bit because I actually was pretty good at flute before I dropped it when I was around 17, 16.
Okay, so then going into band, what were because I've experienced this as well. What were the constraints you felt while you were there as a musician that after leaving you then recognized looking back?
So the main reason why I didn't like concert band was because to me it felt very robotic. I felt like, here's some sheet music, play it, do this concert, walk away.
Yeah.
And it's all this practice for up until this one performance, and then a bunch more practice for another 4 or 5 months until another performance. And I would talk to musicians and they would tell me, yeah, sometimes I just tune out and I autopilot and I just black out during the show, and then I perform and then I get off the stage. And I remember thinking that's really sad to me that you're not, you'd be playing in an ensemble of 40 people, but you wouldn't really be energetically connected to them. And I know some people feel differently, but I just never felt that way. I never felt connected to the people I play with in concert band.
Well, I know Max spoke to this a few times being in marching band, is that when the thing I attribute that to, feeling the oxytocin and the solidarity, is that you're physically out there, you're physically walking and you're playing and you're looking at each other. Whereas in just middle school band,
I wish I could have done marching band.
Yeah.
But I was not about to do marching band with the flute where no one can hear you. On this,
Yeah. There's a musician, she's on the show called Soundfield for PBS Digital Studios. Her name is Nare Soul. But she really emphasizes improvisation in classical music. And people are like, oh goodness, she's on the cutting edge. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, but why did it take so long? Like classical music is there will be no improvisation today. And this person putting out improvisational classical music is deemed as like Tron, like
you're like they're like it's the
Blade
next
Runner
wave.
2049. Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, she's come from the future. Like,
that's why I like Esperanza Spalding is for that reason, because she's somebody that's classically trained, but she's also loose enough and free enough to that. I mean, that's why I like jazz and music in general, because jazz is like classical music, but with more freedom. I mean, it's got the complexity of classical music with the ability to improv, as long as you have a relationship with the rest of everybody. You're like, all right, this is the bare minimum. We're gonna have the foundation, and then we can kind of go loose and go free from there. And like that is why it's one of my favorite genres. I love playing it. I love jazz. I like instinctively go to jazz, like without even thinking about it. But yeah, Esperanza she was also cool.
Yeah, the second you mentioned Esperanza Spalding, I had a really extra response. Just I don't know why I was so loud when I did that.
She's good.
She
and
is.
She's young. Like, she's really young. She was a child prodigy, though. She is a child. Well, yeah, she was a child prodigy when she started. She was like 10 or 9, and she was like in the chamber. She was like in a something organ chamber orchestra. She did something.
Do you ever think about the price that some child prodigies pay for being the genius musicians they are now? Like what they had to pay for early on. Like, do you see anything that you had to compromise or sacrifice staying in music now that you look back and say, wow, damn, I would have never done that now. Like that was some tough shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I first started, music was a lot less political. It was, so like, yeah, I know before I talked about music being something that I didn't want to pursue as a career. It was something that I put kind of in the corner. And I was going to college for communications and digital media arts, like graphic design degree. And then
Illustrator.
Yeah, illustrator, photographer. But yeah, I went to it was something I just did at open mics, kind of like for fun, like after I got out of work.
Yeah.
And so
who does open mics for fun after they get off work?
I did at the time.
I mean, that's got to be the muse just trying to burst right out of you. Like
I literally, I mean, yeah, like Wild Times. This is this dive bar that was in St. Paul. Yeah, and they used to have open mic nights that had a live house band in them.
Is that bar still there?
No, it got bought out by First Avenue for like, they wanted to kind of do like what I'm assuming the Depot is for First Avenue 7th Street, but with the Palace Theater.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they bought it out, which was really sad because that was like my hub for a while. Like I used to like go there.
Yeah, had like a character to it.
And I met so many artists through that space, and because so many McNally students, they would go to Wild Times after like classes and stuff. Yeah, and there'd be these crazy good like keyboard players and sax players and singers that would just pop out at this open mic. Because it was blocked down from McNally, and we just all jam. And so I met so many people through that space. I feel like I met a sax player named Matt Trice who I became friends with through that space. But yeah, but at that time I was super loose and carefree, and I wasn't really thinking about the business of anything. And then as music kind of advanced, I was like, I started to morph into this like businessy mindset, especially like managing yourself, like kind of flipping the switch and being like, I need to get back to bookers at this point at a specific time. I need to like be this certain way.
Responsibility.
Yeah. But the thing is, it starts clouding. I think I get more flustered on stage because I have that always going, like that administrative wheel always turning in my brain.
I hear that.
So I had to sacrifice a little bit of that innocence and that ignorance to music, like of the business of it, to be more successful in it. So now I'm like almost like trying to like break myself back into like that. No, like get that childhood sense of like just enjoying music just for the love of it and just for the passion of it, because that's what keeps you from going crazy and doing it for other people. Yeah. And then getting into this spiral of like, am I really good enough if I'm not being validated consistently?
Well, was that tough for you getting picked to click off the bat, and then next thing you know, where's the rest of the bag?
Yeah. So a lot of other people had their hopes up for me, and that's kind of what influenced my judgment of like where I should be at.
Okay.
But then, because the thing is like, I would have something happen, and then I would get this opportunity, and then it would feel like it like would get pulled away from me right after it would happen. Oh. Like, for instance, I think I talked about like my real breaking out on the scene was like playing at Chastity Brown's album release show, Silhouette of Silence.
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah, and so that was a really big show because once again, it came back at this point of like I was really kind of innocently getting involved with music. I just loved it. I loved Chastity. She hit me up on Facebook, and so when I did that show, I was just like, wow, I just love the fact that I get to be here. Mm-hmm. It's not about anything else. It's not about how many people like me after this. It's just about like I got to perform for an artist that I really, really love. And then, you know, there's like, after you put in years of hard work, whether it's like marketing your songs, releasing songs, paying money for albums, you know, merchandise, you really want people to be able to feel receptive to that. Yeah. Because at this point you've put work and time into it. So if anything, that's sometimes how I feel, is like wanting that time and work and labor that you put into your work to just be validated and received back. Mm-hmm. Especially because at this point I do treat it like a job. And then
what do you do when it's not received or brought back to you?
I go into a little ball, I curl up, I cry myself to sleep. I just journal about how sad life is, and I become a teenage angst emo kid again. No, I was kidding.
Oh, goodness.
But you know, I definitely get back into imposter syndrome. I definitely go into like, should I really be doing music? Is it really right for me? Like, is anybody going to care if I do it? But then, you know, that's when I get back into the mindset of, wow, I'm doing it for other people, not for myself. Because then as soon as I stop worrying about other people, that's when, like, you know, Sonya Grover hits me up at First Avenue. It was like, you want to play the show with Dim Atlas and Brother Ali and Haley and Jack
Sonya
Black?
has been there for...
Sonya is...
since the beginning of time.
The MVP. I will say Sonya Grover at First Avenue is the MVP.
Yeah.
Personal shout out.
Yeah. I just remember getting email. I remember emailing Sonya in like the early 2000s. I mean, that is insane.
Yo. She's been helping. She's been doing some real work.
Well, it sounds like Sonya keeps she keeps tilling the soil of like the Minneapolis music like community, you know, like just to like not like block it out or anything like that, and like quietly, you know, like, you know, even what's the word for, like, anonymously, she keeps going about it that way, like until you'll see all the fruits of her labor, but you won't see her be like, look what I did, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the person that I want to be. I mean, I honestly, because I think at the end of the day, I don't think I want to be like famous. I want to be the person who helps younger artists when they're emerging when I'm 40. You know, like that's the person I want to be, whether that's like being in a position like Sonya's in, like, you know, where she works in a very good management position at First Avenue, or like being just, you know, because the artists who have helped me out, like Chastity Brown, or like Paviel is a really good example. Paviel is somebody who we had never, you know, we've probably met one time, but she has referenced me to The Current. She did a podcast where she was like doing basically commentary, different reviews on different artists in the scene, and she mentioned my work, she mentioned my band, she would talk to me about it. And that engagement from artists who are doing really well and are very established and get a lot of recognition to build up artists who are like emerging and coming into their art form. Like that, because I've been doing it for 3 years, and part of me is like, I've been doing this for a long time, and then I talk to other artists and they're like, that 3 years is like
3 years, what you talking about?
You're still like,
because I remember I mentioned that in the last conversation. I was like, 3 years, okay, early on, and there was a look on your face, you're like, okay.
Well,
old trout.
Oh no, I always feel like man, should I have been doing more in 3 years, or you know? But then I think a lot about how like I've been, you know, juggling the life things, you know, still working.
You're working at Pimento, doing other stuff,
and also like making music. I want to make music something where everything else in my life is like a part of it, you know, whether that's every job that I do is influencing and helping, you know, each other.
And that's got to be the best, because it's not like you're, you know, working at an insurance office and you know, the only thing that's assisting your music career is the paycheck that you get from there. Whereas working at Pimento, you get paid, but you also make connections with musicians as well. So the Chastity Brown introduction. Can you go back over that with me just one more time? What happened
Yeah.
and how you got the gig with Chastity?
Oh yeah, because I do like this. I do
That's a
like
good story.
I like telling this story. So Chastity was doing a 4-week residency at Ice House.
Yeah.
And this was like in 2017 in January. And I was trying to see the show, one of the shows at least, with my friend Cameron. And each show was sold out. And I was like, damn it. And so, like February, rolls around and I'm thinking, damn, I'm probably not going to get to see Chastity, at least not in Minnesota, because, she's got her core audience is here.
Yeah.
And so she ends up hitting me up. I suddenly look on Facebook and she's messaged me directly like, hey, I'm throwing this album release show at Fitzgerald Theater. Would you want to open for it?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my God. And then but my first thought is like, I get to see Chastity Brown in the flesh.
Not I get to open. I get to see her play.
I get to see her play, which was awesome. The cool thing is I was with Jay Weiler, my drummer at the time, and Justin Halverson, who's my bassist at the time, and everything about that show showed me what the grass is greener on the other side looks like for artists. Because when the moment we got there, this dude came out and I was from the Fitzgerald, and I was like, oh, are you here to tell us where we should load in? And he was like, yeah, and I got a dolly and I'm here to help you load in. I'm your roadie for the day. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I'd only been really doing music for 7 months.
Yeah.
So, and I was talking about, we had played a McAllister College toga party the day before.
Oh, God.
So to have this dude come out and and be our roadie, I was like, what? Why are we getting that? We shouldn't.
Went from ashy to classy in less than 48 hours.
Ashy
Woo.
to classy. Yeah, and it was cool. And because we got in at 4, and we had our own separate dressing rooms, which was cool. We all had separate dressing rooms.
That's
and they had
dope.
food catered. They had salmon and all
Yeah.
this really nice stuff catered. And they had I don't know why, but they had a ton of jars of candy, and that was really fascinating to me. I was like, look at all these glasses of candy that they have. They have them everywhere.
Almost for the spectacle of it.
I
It's
know.
I just want to sit here and watch this candy. I don't even want to eat it.
I know. It was definitely I was like, wow, this is how the other side lives, type of mentality. And yeah, and then so I opened, and it was mostly, this is when NPR owned Fitzgerald Theater, so it was mostly NPR crowd. And so we had submitted a song through the Current for one of the best to click, best new band, whatever things that they were doing. And so the first song that I played, which was I Don't Know, there was an audience member in the front that was singing along to the lyrics. And I was kind of how the fuck does this dude know my song? I was freaking out. And the cool thing is when we got off the stage, Andrea Swinson walks up to me and says, this is really interesting, because normally people really tune out to openers. They're like, get off the stage. We're waiting for the headliner to come on, the real prize to come on the stage, which is valid because I've definitely been that person. But she was I was surprised that so many people were actually tuned in and listening. Wow. And I actually got freaked out because when we got off the stage, there were people who it was can I keep your set list? And I was like, this is so weird. I was like, what's going on? I was really,
my handwriting is horrible. Why would you want
no,
this?
you don't want. So it was just it was not a weird experience, but it was a beautiful experience that happened to come about because, and that's the thing, I had no idea how Chastity heard about me.
Oh, okay.
I was playing basement shows. And I had one song that had been submitted, for a random contest. So I really didn't know, but that shows you how interconnected also the Twin Cities is, because the fact that was able to happen in a matter of 7 months. I'm not saying this happens to everyone. I'm saying this was very lucky. It was, I believe luck is opportunity meeting preparedness. I had been musically prepared for a number of years without knowing. But then this opportunity hit, and then I was able to be exposed to this amount of people in a short amount of time, which was really, really, really cool. And that's really how it happens. That's how I feel a lot of success for artists happens, is their preparedness of their skill meeting those opportunities.
If you're ready for it, when they come knocking. So to wrap up real quick, we didn't talk about this last time. What are 4 to 5 articles of clothing or accessories that have kind of almost come to you as you've made your I don't want to say ascension, but as you've defined yourself as a musician and artist over the years. I mean, example for me, I've shed some things, so it could be even things that you've let go of as well, as opposed to maybe added.
Just kidding, I never wore fedoras.
What are 4 to 5 things that you have kind of noticed about your wardrobe that has either disappeared or been added as you've moved forward?
Yeah. So I wear. It's funny. I wear this cross earring. And I do the one earring thing. My mom was like, she was like, you're only wearing one earring, right? And I'm like, that's the look, Mom. Like I have to tell, like that's the thing people do. They wear one earring. You grew up in the 80s, anyways. So,
yeah, they were like the one earring was the 80s.
I was like, that was.
Yeah, what you talking about?
Yeah, what do you? Yeah, so I found this randomly on the floor. A lot of things that I have acquired, I've found in random places, and then I was like, "This is cool. Why don't I wear it?" So one of the things, someone might be looking. So the one earring look I like a lot. I like this cross earring because, I grew up in a really religious background. That's also how I got into music, and so, I grew up as Lutheran. Also raised in a gospel Baptist church, and so I have this relationship where I do feel like the good things, the blessings have come to me through, like I'm not super religious, but I do believe like, this higher being, this higher power, like it was a blessing that I was able to get these opportunities.
And if you ever need an AKA, you can go by Black Lutheran.
Black Lutheran.
Because there ain't a lot of them out there. Ooh, that's a rarity.
You're right. You're right.
Black Lutheran. I don't know what it is, honey, but we need to go watch it.
I gotta make that like Al Green, Higher Planes, like his like religious, his album.
Yeah.
I gotta make like
that could be a movie, a book,
album.
a show. You could just say Black Lutheran coming soon. People be like, I don't know where it's coming, but I want to be there when it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so the earring is one of the things. I have this pair of Doc Marten boots.
Yeah.
That I love wearing because I think Doc Martens. Not right now.
Okay, you're not wearing them right now.
I'm not wearing them right now. I'm wearing my fall boots, but the Doc Martens are a staple. I feel like punk look because like
are they
a lot
black
of
boots?
They're not black. They're like this brown. I'm trying to explain like. They're like the sheer kind of color.
Yeah,
they're like a gold sheer.
Okay.
And so I like them a lot because they're like the most durable boots in the world.
Ooh.
Like they could break a dresser or they could just, but they could also be like classy. Like you could wear them for like a semi-classy event. So I kind of like the versatility of the Doc Martens.
Dope.
Third one, I have this fur coat. I really wish I had it, but there's this fur coat I bought for $20 at a thrift store in Chicago.
Oh wow!
And it's like just this giant black fur coat that like goes down, to like your
very pro
like
wrestler.
Your ankles. Yeah, it's a because the thing is it has really utility. It's like nice and warm in the winter, but it also is just like a badass. Like it's like a pimp coat. It is a pimp.
Like Ravishing Rick Rude.
Yeah, like if I was gonna be Black Lutheran with that pimp coat, I feel like it would. Shit. There we go.
They wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
to streaming platforms.
One or two more things that you've shed or added to the wardrobe.
Yeah, I really like hats.
Okay.
I really like those like wide brim like hats.
Yeah.
That like I did shed fedoras. I unfortunately wore fedoras when I was in college.
I mean, could you fit a fedora on your hair?
I couldn't. That was back when my hair was like relaxed and I used to straighten it.
Okay.
And then the
top hat works. It's conventional now. It's very yeah.
Yeah. So I like those.
I like it, and I'll say this just as a side note, and possibly a little bit to some people's chagrin. I think when people like beneath like 6 feet wear the top hat, I dig it. But when tall people wear it, I'm like, come on, we get it. All right, tall. Fine.
You don't need another. You don't need a platform. And then they wear platform boots. Then it's like
okay, all right. You're really
now they're like
peacocking
7'8".
Yeah,
You're like
there's no.
You're trying
need.
to be an NBA.
Yeah, no.
player. I don't know.
Yeah, when NBA players wear the hat, it's like, man, Pharrell did it for a reason. I think
Pharrell did have that hat.
he brought out the Curious George hat.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, and that's when people were like, well, that hat exists. I want it too. And it's like, come on now. Well, that's interesting. That's very it's a nice look into, what has externally added or been taken away from your identity moving forward. And then lastly, you mentioned this in the last conversation and you touched on it with the earring. How has spirituality affected your journey as a musician, and where do you see it taking you in the future?
That is a good question. I know that the two people I play with, they also grew up kind of like in the gospel Baptist scene.
Yeah. Where we spoke about some of the most amazing drummers and musicians you'll ever see in your life come from gospel. Which
is a good example because my drummer, he's definitely a gospel drummer. Like he grew up in the gospel scene. You can tell just by how like stylistically he is.
Yeah.
And so, I am somebody who like goes to church. I am somebody who like, prays pretty consistently and like for good tidings and so I think a lot of times too, religion is really helpful because it keeps me out of my ego. It keeps me out of being like, well, I should deserve these things. These things should be handed to me. And it's like, no, like you need to work hard and you need to kind of have this positive mindset. It's not necessarily to be overarching to be like, okay, if you just have a positive mindset, it'll happen. It's like, no, still put work and energy into it. But it's also like knowing and trusting and having faith that, there is God. There is this greater being that is wishing you well and pushing you towards these good tidings and towards like things that will help you. Because I've learned a lot of powerful lessons that I didn't want at the time, but I needed, and that have helped me become a better everything, like a better, organizer, a better band leader, a better musician, a better songwriter as a result of experiencing certain hardships at a certain time.
Yeah.
And so all of those things I feel like are very, like they're meant to happen. They're meant to inspire euphoria in a sense of like, okay, this is why this happened. Like, okay, now I can be my better self.
Yeah. And that helps too, as opposed to saying, why me?
Yeah.
Like,
and like
why?
doing a lot of, I don't want a victim center where I'm like, oh, like it sucks that this happened. And it's really hard to be steeped in that too. As somebody who's marginalized too, it's really easy to be like, this happened to me and I'm, black and I'm this. And those are all really still valid, all still really valid. But it's also like, how do I get out of this? How do I show people that, that this, there's this level of respect that can be given. And then I can give to others. So, especially in a place like Minnesota, like as a black artist in Minnesota, it being unseen is like an everyday thing. Yep. And also that I think that the tough part is I would totally take being admittedly unseen as opposed to unseen and then saying, "Well, no, we see you." Yeah. That kills my soul a little. That has been what has killed my soul a little bit, but it's been a lesson, as you said in the beginning, that was something that I didn't want at the beginning, but something that I needed to have to then say, okay, so am I trying to get seen or am I trying to see myself? Yeah. And that's another lesson that you brought back. I mean, for the beginning, one of the things I had to like let go, like I don't want people to see me for the wrong reasons. I don't want people to see me because of clout or like the wrong clout. Like I was associated with like the wrong people or like I only befriended these people because they were going to get me to this higher place. And it's hello Los Angeles. I know. And it's really easy to want to take that route, especially when you see the road. Like I've definitely seen the road where I'm like, if I followed that path, I could end up in a certain place. But I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that path. I just think that if you are to pretend to be genuine and take that path of, utilizing people as rungs on a ladder, at least just be honest about it. So like, I'm just trying to get to the next level. And be like authentic, and then people at least like know what type of relationship they're building with you. Exactly. As opposed to, where did they go? What? Oh, they're trending on Spotify now. Damn it. It's all those bots. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about bots. So a whole nother conversation. Do you have like another album coming out or any new music that you're writing right now? We released a single called Jaded Dreams and it is available under Seaberg on Spotify.
Under Seaberg on Spotify.
On Spotify.
All right.
Yeah, and Jada Dreams is a song I wrote. I originally wrote it in collaboration with someone, and then that collaboration ended up falling off. And then we had this like open track that we had written the music for.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want this to go to waste because the engineer worked longer than like 20 hours on the project with us. Yeah, like so we released it, and it was really, really great. Got a nice little visual along with it. And then we're going to release new music in 2020, and it's going to be hopefully this cool, like punk, hip hop, jazz, like fusion type of deal going on, which I'm like really happy about because I'm really genre fluid, and I just I like to fuck around with multiple things.
That's cool. That's cool. I look forward to coming to one of your live shows at some point, or maybe even doing a show with you down the road.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time and being able to come back. Sorry we botched the audio.
It's all good.
I don't think we botched this audio.
It's all good.
So yeah. Cheers and
Bye, plant.